Hello everyone. So welcome to session 4 of IS Baba's rapid revision series of 500 high probable topics for prelims 2020. I'm Preetham Reddy and I'll be dealing with 15 important topics which are very crucial for prelims examination this year in each session. So our first topic for the day is Mosaic Mission. So Mosaic Mission was in news in 2019 when Vishnu Nandan, researcher from Kerala, became the only Indian among 300 scientists from across the world to join this Mosaic expedition. So Mosaic, that is multidisciplinary drifting observatory for the study of Arctic climate, it was started in September 2019. So I'm repeating again, multidisciplinary drifting observatory for the study of Arctic climate was started in September 2019 in order to study the impact of climate change on the Arctic region. So you have to remember that Mosaic mission or a Mosaic expedition deals with the study of impact of climate change on Arctic region and also its impact on the rest of the world. This Mosaic mission is considered as largest ever Arctic expedition in history because this is the first time to conduct a study of the North Pole for an entire year. So, for an entire year. So, German research vessel Polarstern. So, you have to remember this term Polarstern. So, German research vessel Polarstern has locked itself into a large sea ice sheet before the winter and it will be drifting along with this ice sheet in order to study the changes and the impact of climate change on Arctic region. And last important fact what we have to remember is this mission is spearheaded by the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany and scientists from almost like 17 nations will take part in this year-long mission. Next important topic is UNESCO Creative Cities Network. So recently, two cities from India, that is Hyderabad and Mumbai, were officially designated as a UNESCO Creative City. So two cities, that is Hyderabad and Mumbai, were designated as a UNESCO Creative City. So Hyderabad in gastronomy category. So remember Hyderabad for gastronomy category and Mumbai for film category. So now these two cities are among the 66 new cities named by the UNESCO in the list of new creative cities, which actually aims at pushing the sustainable development goals through innovative thinking and action. So this UNESCO Creative Cities Network aims to achieve sustainable development goals. So let's understand about this UNESCO Creative Cities Network. So this UNESCO Creative Cities Network was created in 2004 in order to promote cooperation with and among cities that have identified creativity as a strategic factor for sustainable urban development. So remember, this network aims to promote cooperation with those cities which have identified creativity as a strategic factor for sustainable urban development. And currently, this UNESCO Creative Cities Network have 180 cities. And this network will act as a common platform so that it is easy to work towards a common objective, that is creativity and cultural industries which are aimed towards achieving sustainable development goals. So just know that it currently has 180 cities. Next important topic is Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement. A simple question can come that Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement deals with which countries. So first of all, we have to remember that this particular agreement was between India and France. The agreement represents a major milestone in enhancing people-to-people contacts and fostering mobility of students, academicians, researchers, and skilled professionals. So this particular agreement, as the name says, it fosters migration and mobility of skilled professionals people-to-people contacts to enhance people-to-people relations, and mobility of students, academicians, researchers, etc. So major aim of this particular agreement is to strengthen the cooperation between both the countries at the same time in order to contain irregular migration and also human trafficking between both the sides. And this particular agreement with France, this shows that the agreement is a testimony to India's rapidly expanding multifaceted relationship with France, and also it symbolizes trust and confidence. So it symbolizes that there has been an increasing trust and confidence between both the countries. At the same time, we have to remember that this agreement is initially valid for a period of 7 years. Later on, there is a provision for automatic renewal and a monitoring mechanism through a joint working group. So just remember that Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement is between India and France, okay, and it will help to enhance the people-to-people relationship and the relations between India and France. Next important topic is Blue Dot Network. So this Blue Dot Network is like a jointly launched initiative by US, Japan and Australia. Okay, so this Blue Dot Network was jointly launched by the US, Japan and Australia in November 2019. So it was launched on November 2019 on the sidelines of the 35th Asian Summit in Thailand, so which was held in Thailand, ASEAN Summit. So this Blue Dot Network acts as a multi-stakeholder initiative to bring together governments, private sectors and civil society, and major objective is to promote high quality, trusted like infrastructure projects, so high quality trusted standards for global infrastructure development. Okay, so in simple, just remember that Blue Dot Network will have a multi-stakeholder initiative, and it acts as a rating mechanism that would grade infrastructure projects, especially in Indo-Pacific region. So already we saw yesterday regarding, like I think in previous session or day before, regarding the Quad. So Quad was an informal strategic dialogue between four important democracies, that is USA, Japan and Australia, aimed towards promoting free and open and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. So this Blue Dot Network is also important because recently US was pushing India to join this particular network, and this particular network acts as a rating mechanism. So it actually it is a kind of like, it will serve as a globally recognized evaluation and certification system. So it grades infrastructure projects like roads, ports, bridges, and with a focus on the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, and this particular Blue Dot Network aims to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. However, we have to note that unlike China's Belt and Road Initiative, this particular Blue Dot Network would not offer any public funds or loans for the project, but it is just a evaluation and a certification system, okay, jointly developed by US, Japan and Australia. Next important topic is Okavango Delta. So Okavango Delta in Botswana. So this particular delta was in news. I think in past few months back, we read a lot of articles dealing with hundreds of elephants dying mysteriously in this Botswana's Okavango Delta. So we'll try to do some map activity. Okay, so you can see this Okavango Delta is in Botswana. Okay, and it is one of the very few major interior delta system that do not flow into a sea or ocean. So you can see here near this Okavango Delta we have Okavango River, which is one of the very few major interior delta systems. So this Okavango Delta is a very few major interior delta system that do not flow into a sea or ocean. And this particular delta comprises both permanent marshland as well as seasonally flooded plains. And this delta, you can see, it also covers some part of Kalahari Desert. So you have to remember that Kalahari Desert is in like Botswana, and this particular Okavango Delta covers part of this Kalahari Desert and owes its existence due to this Okavango River. Okay, and also remember, Okavango Delta is home to some of the world's most endangered species of large mammals such as cheetah, white rhinoceros, black rhinoceros, African wild dog, and lion. Okay, and we'll also try to know about Botswana. Okay, so try to know that Botswana is a landlocked country in southern Africa, and 70% of its territory is covered by Kalahari. So 70% of the territory is covered by Kalahari Desert, and Botswana has the world's largest elephant population. Okay, and one more important point to remember is Botswana is Africa's oldest continuous democracy. And also one more point, that this particular Botswana region is a part of countries that the Tropic of Capricorn passes through this particular region. Okay, so Botswana, so it is a part of the countries that Tropic of Capricorn. So remember, Tropic of Capricorn passes through Botswana. Also try to remember what are the bordering countries of this Botswana. A question can come. Okay, and next important topic for the day is Tulu and Schedule 8 of Indian Constitution. So recently there were articles which were dealing with case for including Tulu in 8th schedule. So there were recent requests to include this Tulu in 8th schedule. Also there were proposals to include Bhojpuri, Rajasthani and Boti. So Bhojpuri, Rajasthani and Boti in 8th schedule. So let's try to know about this 8th schedule at also Tulu language. So Tulu is a Dravidian language, and usually they are concentrated to two coastal districts of Karnataka and Kerala. And there was a term called Saptabhasha Sangama Bhumi. Sapta means 7. So usually this Kasargod district, so remember Kasargod district of Kerala is called Saptabhasha Sangama Bhumi. That is the confluence of 7 languages, and Tulu is among those 7 languages. So remember, if a simple question comes that Saptabhasha Sangama Bhumi is associated with which particular district or which particular state, remember Kasargod district of Kerala. Okay, so we'll be dealing with 8th schedule. So 8th schedule to the Constitution of India lists the official languages of India. So simple question can be like, as last year there was a question regarding 5th schedule, and this year I'm expecting a question on either 8th schedule or 10th schedule, that is anti-defection, or 8th schedule because of one nation one language, and also because of the recent like all these languages trying to be listed under the 8th schedule. Okay, so right now currently 8th schedule consists of 22 languages. And why and what are the advantages when a language is included in 8th schedule? So you have to know this one. Okay, so whenever a language is listed under 8th schedule, so it gets the recognition of official language. So it becomes a part of this 22 languages like official languages. Second important thing is the language whichever is listed will also get the recognition from the Sahitya Academy. Sahitya Academy. Also, any books related to that new language which has been listed will be translated into other recognized Indian languages. Okay, so books are translated. Fourth important thing or fourth important point what we have to know is the members of parliament and MLAs can speak such language in parliament or state assemblies respectively. So MPs and MLAs can use such languages. And last important point what we have to know is the candidates who are preparing for civil service examination, right, they can write in that language. Okay, that's the reason usually if languages get listed to 8th schedule, they have some kind of advantages and priorities. Next important topic is one nation one language. So you might have seen government trying to push Hindi to become the one language for one whole nation. So we'll try to know about certain important constitutional articles dealing with them. So according to Article 343, Hindi, which is in Devanagari script, is the official language of the Union. So Hindi is in Devanagari script. So according to Article 343, Hindi is the official language of the Union. Okay. The Constituent Assembly of India adopted Hindi written in Devanagari script along with English as the official language of the country. You have to note it. Under Article 351, it is the duty of Union to encourage the spread of Hindi language so that it may serve as a medium of communication. It can serve as a medium of communication. So it is the duty of the Union to encourage the spread of Hindi language, and this Hindi is a part of 22 languages of the 8th schedule of the Constitution. Okay, and there are some constitutional safeguards for like other languages. That is, Article 29 provides that a section of citizens having a distinct language, script or culture have the right to conserve the same. So they have the right to conserve and protect the language, script and culture. And right now we don't have any national language. And Article 350B provides for the appointment of special officer for linguistic minority with the sole responsibility of safeguarding the interest of language spoken by the minority groups. Okay, so 350B, so you can remember that particular article also. The next important article is Article 344 subclause 1 and Article 351. Already we saw Article 351 which encourages the spread of Hindi language. So Article 344 provides for establishment of commission by the President after 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution. Like Article 344(1) provides for establishment of a commission by the President on the expiration of 5 years and then after 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution. And the commission should have members which represents like various languages specified in the 8th schedule. Okay, and these the members who are in this commission would make recommendations to the President for the dynamic use of Hindi for official purposes of the government of India, among others. So you have to know that this Article 344 also empowers, and it also provides for the establishment of a commission by the President, and this commission can make recommendations to the President for the dynamic use of Hindi like for any official purposes of the government of India. And next, Article 351, as we said already, it provides for the spread of Hindi language to develop so that it may serve as a medium of expression for all the elements of composite culture of India. But one important thing what we have to remember is, add one point here. So it provides for the spread of the Hindi language without interfering with other languages specified in the 8th schedule. So it provides that it should not interfere with other languages provided in 8th schedule. So next important topic is this 2019 was declared recently as International Year of Indigenous Languages. Okay. Sorry, in 2016 itself, UN General Assembly had adopted a resolution proclaiming that 2019 will be declared as International Year of Indigenous Languages. That's the reason this year we can expect a question regarding Article 29 or some of the constitutional articles dealing with the languages or the 8th schedule. Okay, so in 2019, like it is this 2019 is called as International Year of Indigenous Languages, and this was based on recommendation by the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Okay, and this particular initiative was hosted by UNESCO in collaboration with the Permanent Forum. Next important topic is ULU proclamation. So simple question can come. What is ULU proclamation is associated with? So ULU proclamation by UNESCO, like it was by the UNESCO at Changsha, and Changsha is a place from People's Republic of China, and this proclamation was brought in 2018, and it is the first UNESCO document which actually is dedicated to the protection of linguistic diversity. Okay, and it is an important supporting document of UN International Year of Indigenous Languages. That's the reason this ULU proclamation is important, because it acts as an important supporting document for the United Nations International Year of Indigenous Languages 2019. It also calls for all the stakeholders to reach a consensus on the protection and promotion of linguistic diversity in the world. Next important topic is National List of Intangible Cultural Heritage, and also UNESCO List of Intangible Cultural Heritage. So on the lines of UNESCO List of Intangible Cultural Heritage, recently Ministry of Culture launched this National List of Intangible Cultural Heritage of India, and this is a part of Vision 2024 of the Ministry of Culture. And this National List of Intangible Cultural Heritage aims to recognize the diversity of Indian culture, right? So it is an attempt to recognize the diversity of Indian culture and its intangible heritage. We know that India houses a repository of unique intangible cultural heritage, and almost like 13 of the Indian intangible cultural heritage is already recognized by UNESCO. So it also becomes important to know few of these names. So tradition of Vedic chanting, Ram Leela, Kuttiyatam, and Raman, Mudiyettu, Kalbelia folk songs, Chow dance, Buddhist chanting of Ladakh, Sankirtana, and traditional brass and copper craft of utensil, yoga, and Navroz and Kumbh Mela. These all are the part of UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage. And I think last three were recently added, that is yoga, Navroz, and Kumbh Mela. So try to know about them. Okay. So we'll see about UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage. So it was established by UNESCO. So like intangible cultural heritage list is provided or published by the UNESCO, and it lists some of the cultural heritages from different countries with the aim of ensuring better protection of important cultural heritages and also their awareness, and to promote the significance of conserving these particular heritages. And this list is published by Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, and it was established in 2008 when the 2003 Convention for Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage was when it came into effect. So next important topic is Indo-Bangla Baul Music Festival. Okay, so recently a 3 day festival was like celebrated or concluded in Dhaka, that is Indo Bangla Ball Music Festival. This year it is important because recently it was in news and it also commemorates 129th death anniversary of this ball saint Fakir Lalun Shah. Okay, so it is 129th death anniversary of Fakir Lalun Shah, who is a ball saint. And this ball music is a form of folk music and it is unique to Bangladesh and West Bengal in India. Okay, and this word ball means afflicted with wind disease, and the ball singers are traditionally wandering like minstrels singing their particular form of folk music. The lyrics and music are kind of like soul searching, quite comparable to the Sufi music. Okay, so this ball tradition or ball folk music is comparable to the Sufi music, and we have to know about ball music because ball was also recently included in the list of masterpieces of oral and intangible heritage of humanity by UNESCO. Okay, next important topic is South Asia Cooperative Environment Program, because recently 15th meeting was held. So 15th meeting of Governing Council of South Asia Cooperative Environment Program was organized in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So two things we have to remember. One is Indo-Bangla Ball Music Festival, which was organized or concluded in Dhaka, and the 15th meeting of Governing Council of this SACEP was also organized in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So we'll know about this SACEP, that is South Asia Cooperative Environment Program. It is an intergovernmental organization, and this was established in 1982 by the governments of South Asia. So you have to remember, as the name only says, South Asia. Okay, and we will see who are the member countries. So Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So all the South Asian countries are the member countries. The major objective is to promote and support protection, management and conservation of environment, right? So SACEP acts as the secretariat for the South Asian Seas program. So next important thing what we have to remember is the South Asia Cooperative Environment Program also acts as the secretariat for the South Asian Seas program, which comes under the purview of UNEP's Regional Seas program. And recently India signed a MOU, that is Memorandum of Understanding, with SACEP for cooperation on the response to oil and chemical pollution in South Asian Sea region. So next important topic is environment education awareness and training. So this particular central scheme was started in 83-84. The major aim of this particular scheme is to promote environmental awareness and mobilize student participation. So why this program was important? Because recently there were many articles dealing with the National Green Corps and Eco Club program, which is a part or under this particular scheme, that is environment education awareness and training. Okay, and this National Green Corps, that is Eco Club program, was initiated in 2001 or 2002 under this particular scheme. So let's know about National Green Corps program and the Eco Clubs. So National Green Corps program is one of the components of the environment education and awareness and training. Okay, through this National Green Corps program, around 1,50,000 eco clubs were established in schools and colleges across the country, and nearly around 35 lakh students are actively involved in programs related to environment protection and conservation. Okay, so these eco clubs have been a center stage for various environmental protection and conservation activities like cleaning drives like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, plantation drives, cleaning the beach, and then making eco-friendly idols of Ganesha, etc. And this year there was news that this scheme, it is envisaged to increase the number of eco clubs, so from 1.5 lakh to 2 lakhs in the ensuing year, that is by 2020 to 2021 they want to increase. I don't know right now, like colleges and schools are locked down, and how they meet this particular objective. So final topic for the day, that is NCAP, which was launched in 2019. So National Clean Air Program was launched in 2019, and it will be a midterm 5-year action plan, starting with 2019 as the first year. Okay, the approach of this NCAP includes collaborative, multi-scale and cross-sectoral coordination. But there has been one criticism, that the targets are not legally binding. Targets are not legally binding. So let's see what are these targets, which are very important to remember. So first target is to achieve 20% to 30% reduction in PM10 and PM2.5 concentration by 2024, keeping 2017 as the base year. And 102 non-attainment cities, mostly in Indo-Gangetic plains, have been identified based on the ambient air quality data, like from the WHO report, and also from the period of 2011 to 2015. So whichever cities are performing poor with its ambient air quality data, so those 102 non-attainment cities have been identified initially, and city specific action plans have been approved for all these 102 non-attainment cities. Okay, so try to remember these things. All 15 topics were very important. So next session we'll be dealing with another 15. And thank you for watching, and do comment if you have any queries, and do subscribe to our channel.